Shut up and sit down.
Hello and welcome back to the Tiki Sessions from Kon-Tiki Boat Bar in Kelly's Portrush. As always, Stuart Cullen from Rawee Board Company, and behind the bar we have the great Ash. What's crack?
I am good, thanks man. I'm delighted to have Mark along here tonight. I've made you a lovely mojito here with some rum, some fresh lime, some fresh mint. And as I say, I'm delighted to have you on the Kon-Tiki Boat Bar here tonight, man. So
it's great to be here, yeah.
Thank you. Looking forward to a good chat with you.
So, Mark, we've known each other probably about 10 years now, on and off, through media work and now through water leisure, really. So you, during COVID, set up a new business. Can you tell us a bit about that business?
Yeah, well, it's Atlantic Kayaks, or very quickly became Atlantic Kayaks Leisure. Came about through COVID. As you say, we were all in the events industry, and it stopped overnight.
Yeah.
And it'd been easy to sit back and do nothing, but whenever we realised it was going to last a little bit longer than expected, just felt I needed to do something. So what had happened was a bottle of wine one night in the house, and this mad crazy idea was born that we were going to start bringing some kayaks in, sell them, and the rest is, as I say, history.
History. And had you been involved in kayaking before, or was this something new to you? Because you sort of hit the trend right on the head, because during COVID, as you know, so many people have returned to water sports and returned to the coast and getting back into the water again. So was this something that you were doing before and had experience in, or was this literally you read the market and knew what you were going to do?
A bit of both, to be fair. We had, I'd always been sort of in the water and the paddle sports as a child. Sort of that was always something that we'd grown up and gone out with friends and families and uncles and stuff like that. You know, I'd been on the water. The timing thing was probably as much accidental as it was good planning. Initially, I had decided to go and buy a kayak, like half the population decided to do last year, and when I couldn't get one, the only way to get one was bringing in a container load. We sort of thought that's a random, stupid idea, and then we thought, well, they're not going to go out of date. We can sell them. Okay. So we decided to sell them, and before we knew it, first container was away within a few weeks, and
wow.
Before we know it, then everybody was in looking at accessories, and a full website and full retail business was born.
Brilliant. And you opened your first store in Coleraine?
First store came about, it was actually a bit of office space that we had left over. We had just moved the events businesses to a new warehouse, new 4,500 square foot warehouse, about 2 months before the pandemic hit. We had a lot of extra office space, which we were planning to grow into as offices, and they became showroom space. And the first store was then sort of operated from there, partly as showroom, partly as web distribution, but soon to become shop, I suppose.
So you're bringing in a container load of kayaks, and this is the first time you've done that. So obviously there's a lot of nervousness about, right, we've just forked out X amount of money to a company from wherever in the world. It's maybe going to take 6-8 weeks for this to come. Like, are you able to go on the computer and track where everything is, or is it just like, it'll be with you in 6 weeks, give or take a week or two? Like, I would be quite nervous about that outlay the very first time I do it.
First time you do it, yeah, there's a sort of a fear, there's a nervousness. The kayaks, we knew they were similar to others that were in the market. We knew the factories they're coming from. We had seen plenty of FaceTime videos with the suppliers in Asia, and it was sort of, I suppose we were fairly confident in what we were getting, and but it was still strange. Yes, and it's a big outlay, and you have 6 weeks to wait for them coming on the
Is this not slap bang in the middle of Brexit as well, and all the chat about actual imports and how that's going to be affected? I'm sure you were a wee bit.
Yeah, it was sort of kind of there was an excitement which sort of got us past that fear. It was like sort of going, well, this is happening, this is great, this could be a whole new business. And then every now and again reality struck. I was like, what if?
Yeah.
What if? Yeah. But you know what? It was a gamble, and we thought, hey, you know what? In for a penny, in for a pound, let's go for it.
I remember back whenever I was doing live events, we booked 16 times world darts champion Phil Taylor to come and do a exhibition event in a local hotel. And as you can imagine, like, Phil Taylor cost a fortune to bring across, like serious money, and we had to pay everything up front, and we had this panic, and I remember sitting outside the hotel in the absolute piss and rain waiting for this car to arrive, and I was just sat there going, what happens if some guy gets out of this car and it's like a Phil Taylor lookalike?
Philip Schmeler.
And yeah, and he got out of the car and it was him, and I've never felt that, because we sold the event out in 30 minutes. It was a huge event, huge success, but I've never felt relief like it, and I'm sure you're the same as well. Whenever that container, you get the information that it's through customs and it's on its way up the road to the north coast to you, and then whenever you open it, and you know, it's probably like Christmas for you, you open the boxes and you're going, this stuff is exactly what we wanted, or, you know, and we're happy about it. So, you know, you get all those kayaks in, and then how you start marketing them, you know, because you're originally a entertainment company, or an events company. So then you've got 16 or 20 or 30 kayaks.
Yeah, well, as you said, you know, sort of at that stage, timing was perfect. You know, everybody was looking at them. We sort of, they marketed themselves as soon as word got out we had them. As soon as we knew they were on the water, we were able to, you know, get a website set up. And the website initially started out with 2 or 3 products on it. You know, there was 2 styles of kayak, and you know, maybe half a dozen colours in each. You know, and as soon as that went live, the pre-orders were coming in. So again, that sort of reassured us a little bit that we were getting money coming in fairly quickly, or we knew that there was pre-orders, there was deposits being put down for them. And we still have, to be honest with you, to this day, we still haven't managed to catch up. You know, everything is still pre-order, and there's waiting
Tell me
lists.
this, mate, is it mostly Northern Irish, Rawee, Great Britain?
We're
whatever?
shipping right across Ireland and UK at the minute.
Brilliant, man.
You know, they're going out mostly Northern Irish. There's a fair number have gone to the south, and I say a handful of them are starting to move across to the UK.
Brilliant.
That's the thing, they are like hen's teeth. They you know, they're incredibly hard to get, you know. And the pre-order thing's great. We did, whenever we launched Rawee, we did a pre-order, and we did a 2-week pre-order. So anybody that ordered, their stuff would come 2 weeks later, and it was a godsend, because first of all, it gives you that cash flow, which is always really important in business. But then it also gives you confidence in the product that you have as well, because you know there's a need for it, and it gives you that boost, because, you know, launching any business, and you know yourself, because you're involved in several businesses, and as you have been over the years, and you're just about to launch, you know, the tiki bar, there is always that nervousness of, will people want what I'm trying to give them, if you know what I mean? So those pre-sales are really important. And you've recently moved to Castle Rock, your hometown.
Yep. The opportunity came up there's already a beach shop in Castle Rock. We got word, or got inkling, from the current owner that she may be prepared to sort of sail up and let us move out, and it was the ideal location. The only shop of its type west of the Ban, really, and we saw a huge market. And again, you know, as you say, it's the hometown or home village. We'll not call it a town; that's rating it too high. But you know, it was. I've never seen Castle Rock as busy as what it is. You know, for surf and everything. You know, and that the shop out there has taken a slightly different direction in that it is almost surfy style, but with a bit of an emphasis, slightly more on the paddle sport stuff as well. You know, so we're not through and through surf shop.
And I was lucky, I was able to have a look around your shop, you know, before you opened, whenever you're setting up, and I was in chatting to you, and it looks phenomenal. And like you say, there's nothing else really around you, and you have a beautiful location, because you're bang in the centre of town, but you're also, a minute's walk to a stunning beach with great surf on it. And like, you would have surfed Castle Rock.
Yeah, definitely. It's a brilliant beach to surf. And like, for me, like, the benefit of buying from someone like yourself, we were at the beach at East Strand. Like, it must have been just after Christmas, and these guys had just obviously got their inflatable stand-up paddleboards shipped from China, box fresh wetsuits, zipped up the wrong way, walked down in a howling offshore wind. And I went over to him and I said, look, have you done this before? No idea, but it's like having that credibility of going in and speaking to somebody and saying, look, if there's an offshore wind or whatever, and it's having a shop in Castle Rock where you get somebody potentially driving up from Belfast who's doesn't appreciate the sea, or the power of the sea, and going out in an offshore wind and an inflatable stand-up paddleboard is not great. obviously you've been working with the Coast Guard for an awful long time. So can you chat through just a wee bit more about like how you got involved with the Coast Guard and how you like beach safety and with regards to inflatable SUPs is so important, especially because everybody seems to be at it these days.
Yeah, well, it is. It's one of those things that's become more and more popular, and obviously, sort of by law of average, the more people are doing it, the more people are putting themselves at risk. And as you say, complete beginners. Like I joined the Coast Guard six years ago now. Again, it was just that the opportunity came about. I had left full-time job and gone self-employed fully at that point, so I had a bit of time on my hand, sort of that whole sort of self-employed stroke unemployed philosophy that people think you have, and I was able to join and sort of go through the training there, and it's given me knowledge and given me sort of a bit of confidence in that when we are selling the product to people, that we can give them advice, and it's one thing that we're very, very strict about, and sort of if somebody's buying whether it be a kayak, a paddle board or whatever, we're making sure that they have all the other bits that they need to go with it, because totally. It's easy to walk in and buy a paddleboard package, and you could walk out the door, and other retailers just could happily take the money and not really give two hoots. But I don't want to be selling them a paddleboard and then going and meeting them a couple of hours later
and rescuing
that's the sort of the mindset we're in, and it might come a bit overkill sometimes. This customer walked in a couple of weeks ago and they were quite happy just to buy it. They were down the beach with the kids. They'd always wanted one, and they were going to go. And as soon as I found out what they were doing, it was sort of at that stage there was a howling offshore wind. So I was able to open them up, show them an app. This is where you check the wind. There we are. We've got 15 knots offshore, and if you're taking that paddleboard, go put it in the boot of your car and enjoy it. Another day. Yeah. And if you're going to do it for the first time ever, go and get a couple of lessons. Go down and take it out of Swan's Bridge or whatever, where you're not going to put yourself at risk.
It's so funny, man, because like we talked with Alan Simpson about the potential gentrification of Portrush and the North Coast region, and when like he called them the dry robe brigade, where they're coming out box fresh dry robes, inflatable SUPs, and I think it's so important that like us and it's very good. Like I think most surfers or whatever will be really good at saying to somebody, like there's a bit of a rip there or whatever, and like as a piece of advice to anybody who's getting into it, always speak to the local lifeguards or yourself. I'm sure you guys are great at actually selling it, or like once you sell it, giving a bit of advice like that. So it's great too.
And like even this week, one of the large supermarket chains was selling inflatable paddle boards, and they were like 250 quid, which is like cheap, like for a paddle board. And there's people queuing from 4:30 in the morning. And they were getting wee tickets, and if you had a ticket, you got a paddleboard, and there's people buying 4 or 5 of them, if you know what I mean. And again, it's like we spoke about with Hanno whenever he does the beach safety courses and stuff like that. We want everybody, especially from where we come from on the North Coast, we want everyone that visits here to have a good time and really enjoy themselves. And nobody enjoys themselves if they end up having to get rescued at the end of the day, So, what sort of training do you get in the Coast Guard? Obviously, you have to be trained for rescues. You have many different types of rescues. So, how is it being a volunteer in the Coast Guard?
Listen, it's great. From a personal development point of view, the things you get to experience and the skill set that you learn, from sort of the cliche teamwork, right through to the sort of the practical and the physical sort of training sessions that you go through. I'd be wrong to say it's there's an enjoyable side to all the training, but with a real sort of serious underlying sort of responsibility behind it as well. But the training, we're trained in everything from water rescue, we're trained in rope rescue, and we're trained in mud as well in the Korean team. So you don't know, when you're doing the training, obviously you're preparing for every eventuality, but when it comes to actually an incident, you don't know what you're going to be going to. And I think that's what sort of keeps the sort of the excitement and the adrenaline rush every time that sort of the beeper goes, and you have that rush. But from a training point of view, the organisation is fantastic. The training is second to none, and right through from your first aid training right up to sort of being fully qualified as a cliff technician to go over a cliff. The stuff they have and the training programs are, they leave nothing out.
That's it. One of the partners in Rawee is actually a member of Red Bay RNLI, And I always slag him because he's always walking around with his pager on, and I'm like, you just bought that on eBay because you know you're in Ballymoney, you're not on call, but yet you're still wearing your pager. But then I see photographs on Facebook, and I read reports of whenever they've been called out, and you know, as much joshing as we do together, you know, people that are in the RNLI, the fire service, the ambulance service, the Coast Guard, you know, majority of people are volunteers, and what you're actually doing is phenomenal work. So it is, and especially on a coast that's so busy, and we do get so many tourists that aren't used to the coast. And you know, you've got, what age are your kids, Ash? Like
They're 5 and 7
5
actually.
and 7.
And I think that, like, from my point of view, I've been a beach lifeguard and I've been a surf instructor, and like I've been in swimming with my family and stuff, and like people just don't realise the risks that they're in, and like, I don't know, I've become this guy who's like, oh no, I wouldn't go there, and it's like that fine line of somebody who's blissfully unaware and somebody who knows the risks, and it's difficult. And like, for me, how do you deal with, like, because you go out, I'm sure you've been out in some tough calls, and like we've talked a lot about in business about resilience and how you get over these things. What do you do in your downtime to be able to decompress or to get away from that sort of stuff? And like, what advice would you give people who are you know, struggling with that sort of compartmentalization kind of thing?
It becomes a way of life, and there's no getting away from that. You know, no matter what you're doing, and you're saying there about having that sort of fine balance of, you know, blissfully unaware and that awareness of risk. And you know, my own kids, they laugh at me, you know, sort of, it's, you know, oh daddy, why do you always think about what could go wrong? Yeah. And it's because we see what could go wrong.
Totally.
And we don't want to be, and you know, the last thing you want to be doing is calling your own team in as well. You know, so I know it's always in the back of the mindset, but at the same time, you become slightly hardened to it. You go home and you do just switch off, and you go back to normal life again. But it will always be a part of your life. And you're saying, Stuart, about people carrying, you know, their pager around Ballymoney when they're in Red Bay. That becomes part of your body when you have that pager on you. You know, and you're always, you know, I've seen myself walking around the centre of Belfast when I had mine on, and again, you're out of range. You're not going to be responding to anything.
But it's that mindset.
Yeah, and if you sort of pick and choose when you are going to carry it, then that's when you won't have it when you need it. You know, and it's sort of it does become part of you.
That's it. So you're involved, as we both were, in live events. Obviously, with Corona, that's taken a massive hit. You've started Atlantic Kayaks Leisure. You're in the Coast Guard. You have 4 kids. When do you ever get time for yourself? Sorry, and you're a scout leader as well.
I'm a scout leader, yeah.
Same as myself. So, you know, we talk about people working, and we talk about the mental strain that all of this has on people. So when do you get time for yourself? And what, you know, whenever it's just you, how do you relax and unwind?
I think that's $1 million question. When do I? And how do I? I don't know. Things are different. You know, they're all slightly different. You know, and to be fair, you know, out with the scouts on a camp is downtime. Yeah. Yes, you're there. Your responsibility lies with a load of young people, but it's enjoyable. The Coast Guard training is an enjoyable thing. Going out on the call outs, you know, you're doing good, so you're enjoying that. So you know, whilst you're not sitting down, feet up, doing nothing at any point in time, there's a nice balance of everything that goes on. Going back, sort of, you know, before the pandemic, looking back at this stage in hindsight, we were too busy, and I was probably just flat out and didn't stop. And I didn't realise, you know, that I was at that stage. I didn't realise I was so sort of kind of wearing myself down. And, you know, early last year I did pay the consequences for that, you know. So
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah. You had some unwanted downtime last year, which took everybody that knew you, took us all shockingly. You know, we all sort of freaked out about that. So do you mind telling us what happened?
Yeah, well, I got to sleep for a few days. No, it came upon me that quick. I don't even know what the build-up was to it. We were busy. whether or not that's anything to do with, or whether it was a stroke of bad luck, I don't know. And you could argue and say that I had sort of kind of run myself towards it, and I know there's people out there are telling me it was because of that. It happened that quickly. Saturday afternoon, I was in Dublin, we watching the son playing rugby, coming back up the road in the bus, and my ear started to go a bit numb, as if it needed to pop. And it was just, it wasn't, there was no real concern to it.
Yeah.
Didn't think it was anything untoward. Went out on a Saturday night. I did a gig. I was playing away, gradually getting more and more deaf as I went on. On the Sunday, out of hours doctors, there was an ear infection, and by the Monday night I was in a coma in ICU. And what had happened was it was a bacterial ear infection.
Wow. What put you in a coma?
The eardrum ruptured.
Wow.
And it went into the brain, which was meningitis, and fed through the rest of the body and gave me sepsis. So that was basically on the Monday morning was when I started to physically feel really badly ill, and I went back to bed, and I remember nothing after that apart from waking up in hospital then at the end of that week.
And again, something like that happens, no matter who the person is, it has to change their outlook on everything. So, you worked very hard beforehand, and as you know, I would work extremely hard as well, and I had my downtime, shall we call it, for a year there that I had to just chill, because if I didn't, I was going to end up, totally burning myself out. So after you come out of that, I know I totally reevaluated my life, and now I'm sort of like, there's still reminiscence of the old me that just wants to constantly work, if you know what I mean. But now, I'm more aware of it, and I need my wife to tell me to slow down now still, because I'm now like, I'm stronger again, I can go back to it. So after something like that, and yours was like horrendously serious, do you sit down and do you go, right, I do need to reevaluate here, or do you just go, I was lucky, move on?
No, it definitely makes you reconsider everything that you have been doing. And again, I suppose the risk is that you do go back to that feeling, I am stronger, I can go back and I can do this, and I can pick up where I left off. To be fair, there's probably a certain amount of that that's still in the back of the mind that I know myself, and we're sort of, Atlantic Kayaks Leisure is getting really busy. I'm working hard again, but it's normal hours, or relatively normal hours in comparison to the event stuff, as you well know. I suppose in preparation for when the events start back later on in the year, we are sort of considering and evaluating the business, and how are we going to structure this, how are we going to work this.
I know it's such a weird thing. Like, coronavirus has been horrendous in so many ways, but what it has offered, if you look at the positives, is a potential reset button for a lot of people, and evaluate your life and see what it was like before and what it's like afterwards. And for me, it's actually been a bit of a blessing in disguise. I was able to break some shackles and say, right, do you know what? This is offering up an opportunity. And I suppose if you're looking for those opportunities, you can take them, or you can sit back and just reevaluate things and spend more time with your kids, spend more time with your other half, or whatever it is. Spend more time with yourself too. And we've talked about this a lot, about how you can invest in the North Coast. Open water swimming seems to be a big thing. Stand-up paddleboarding, all the things that you're selling accessories for, which is brilliant, man. So I'm so stoked that obviously it's been a tough year for you, but hopefully it's about that work-life balance. And I was doing a course today with a couple of students talking about mental health, and particularly in the hospitality industry. It can be a notoriously difficult place to work. You're working long hours, you tend to have a few beers after work, you're back into work the next day, nutrition's at an all-time zero, your exercise at all-time zero, which we all know, but I think that hopefully most of us will take this as a reset button and say, right, moving forward, we're going to go to Atlantic Kayaks and Leisure and buy a load of stuff and actually take advantage of it.
Maybe Ashley could even go to Atlantic Kayak and Leisure and buy some Rawee stuff so they could, because I have been talking to Mark and trying to get her stuff in there. But Mark, you know yourself from the live events, the live events industry is a really fun industry to work in, but if we're doing a concert, you could be in at 8 o'clock in the morning and working to 2 o'clock in the morning, then driving back to the North Coast for an hour, getting some sleep, and having to be back in Belfast for 8 o'clock the next morning to do it all again. And even people would say to me, would you ever go on tour? And I was like, if I was 20 years younger, but see now, a weekend of live events like proper concerts absolutely kills you for about a week and a half afterwards, you know. So if you could talk to 16-year-old Mark with the wisdom you have now and say, right, this is what I've done, this is what I've been through, I'm going to tell you how to do it. What would you tell him? Would you do it the same way, or what would you tell him?
Go get a public sector job and
Civil service
enjoy the
job.
benefits. Yeah,
No, you wouldn't.
Go work in the civil service. No, you know what you're getting yourself into. Pace it. And sort of kind of structure where you want to be. You know, I have never been one to sit down with a 5-year plan, or I've never been one to sit down with a business and sort of think, you know, this is how we are going to do this and this is where we're going to go. We go with the flow.
Yeah.
You know, and that's right or wrong. It's probably a more gambly way to go, you know, but I'm lucky. It's always paid off. You know, and sort of just don't be a busy fool. You know, only do, and this is probably where we have become, you know, a bit more wise to this, as you say, the reset button of COVID. You know, work out what it is that's actually going to, you know, be successful for you, and work out, should I do this, before you go, you know, full on weld into it, and tire yourself out trying to make it work when it's not going to work.
I think it's passion, isn't it? If you're passionate about something, like obviously there's that sort of like going with the flow type of thing, as you say. But for me, if you've a passion in something, you can make it happen. Yeah. But there's no point, flogging a dead horse? And it's just like
that's it. And you keep saying we, and there's another half
Yep.
to everything. And Claire, your good wife, and. Claire, to me, and I've met Claire umpteen times, but I wouldn't say I know Claire as well as I would know you. Claire in herself is a very strong, independent business person, and it seems to be a really good mix. So do you think you would be where you're at now without Claire, or, you know, you are a perfect team as a husband and wife, you know? And it's always really hard working with your spouse, if you know what I mean, because you're working with them, you're living with them, and as much as you love them, but you two seem to have it really sorted when it comes to working together. And, you know, I assume you wouldn't want it any other way.
No, Claire is, she says she's really, really strong. She's really, really independent. And no, as the answer to that question, I wouldn't be where I am without her. She's always been sort of behind me. She's always given me that little bit of a push when I have, you know, on the occasion where I have been hesitant about things, you know, and even with the Atlantic Kayaks thing, you know, sort of, again, it was sort of joking aside about that kind of mad, crazy bottle of wine moment of going, sure, let's buy a container of kayaks.
Yeah.
It was like, oh no, actually, you know, oh, no. And, you know, at the same time, she's sitting beside me going, well, why not? You know, why not? Just go with it. Go with the flow. Sure, what could go wrong? You know, and we are a good team. It has its tough enough moments, you know, where you're sort of sitting, as you say, every evening in the house, and you get up in the morning, you have your breakfast, you know, and drop the kids off at school, and the two of you are heading into the office. You're sitting staring at each other across the desk in the office. Then it's home time, and you're away back home again, and you're still sitting staring at each other around the kitchen table.
And that's why you've got 2 stores now, isn't it?
And that's why you've got 2 stores.
one in Korea and one in Castle
come out of the house and split. One goes left, one goes right.
But, you know, it's having a partner like that's really good, because when you need that push forward, they give you that nudge and that bit of confidence. But when you need reined in as well, they're great at telling you, wind your neck in, that's a stupid idea. And, you know, to have a partner like that, obviously as a wife, but also then, you know, transcending into business as well, that's a phenomenal thing, because she's able and you're able to say things to each other that if you were just straight business partners, you wouldn't be able to say to each other, and you wouldn't be able to be as honest with each other. So again, you know, I think that's always good when you've got a good husband and wife team that work well together, that they do give you that push forward, but they do give you that pull back as well.
So, I know we say things to each other that definitely, you know, breach all employment law and things, you know, and it's just, well, listen, you know what, we're married, so we can say that. You know,
that's
but,
it.
You certainly couldn't say it to say somebody you were just working with or a business partner, I'd say they could be issues.
And what's your hopes for the Castle Rock store then for this summer? Like we're coming out of lockdown, and we were talking to previous guests about lockdown, saying how the North Coast was as busy as ever during lockdown, but we're coming out of it. If we get good weather this summer, you know, Castle Rock and that sort of 100-yard stretch between you and the beach, you know, you've got the cafe and you've got yourselves, and there's a real cool vibe about that area on the way down to the beach. What's your hopes for this summer then?
I hope it will be busy. I think we will. Early indications show that it will be. You know, Friday the 30th of April was lockdown lifting slightly for Northern Ireland, i.e. caravan parks were reopened, people were allowed to travel, shops were now reopened. And it was crazy. It was a busy weekend. That was our opening weekend within the shop. Obviously, sort of we had been doing click and collect previous to that as a location. But going forward, I will see that building. You know, having spoken to the sort of the caravan parks and stuff on our doorstep, you know, they're fully booked for the season ahead. Yeah. You know, and it's going to be a huge year for the staycation, which is great because we want people in our area, and it's absolutely, it's amazing to see people up enjoying what we have here at home. Yeah. And a place that we call home, and we're very, very lucky to call home. You know, on
like the North Coast, and we've said this several times during the Tiki sessions. The North Coast is like, and I know we're biased, but it is one of the most beautifulest places on the planet. Like, it's stunning.
When the sun shines, there's nowhere better. Yeah. I think we're all praying this summer that we get it, because the rise of staycations will cement things this year, but then next year when international guests are allowed back in again, we'll be ready to hit it.
You know, we've spoken to a load of people that have come on to the Tiki sessions that like have lived in New Zealand, Hawaii, Morocco, California, LA, and they all go, there's no, and you know, they're maybe not originally from here, and they all say there's nowhere on the planet like the North Coast. And whenever you're talking to someone that's lived in Hawaii or LA or Morocco, and you know, you're going, that's a hell of a statement, but they totally mean it. And the pull to the North Coast from people that live here who go away to bring them back is stronger than it's ever been, you know. So Castle Rock, busy summer, going to keep the Korean store open?
Korean will stay open until such times as we need the office space back, and then we'll reassess it, whether that be moving it to another location or whatever. But yeah, I would imagine Castle Rock will be our main you know, seasonal one. You know, outside of summer, yes, Castle Rock, like any sort of seaside village, will take a hit. Listen, you know what? It didn't really die off winter past, so if it maintains like that, we'll be all right. As
with any tourist town, you make your money through 4 months, and hopefully that carries you through the winter. Well, listen, Mark, thanks so much for coming on tonight. We wish you all the best with both the stores. For personal reasons as well as for yourself, I hope the events industry kicks off again and we get back to a lot of work, because it has been a quiet couple of years, and there's a lot of boys that we work with that have had a very tough time with things. Also from Ash, we hope you come into the Tiki Bar whenever it opens and bring your staff down and have a good night.
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure having you in, man. Thank you.
No, thank you. It's great to actually sit in a physical bar inside.
Exactly, isn't it? It's unusual.
It's not freezing and there's no rain landing in the drink. So
exactly.
Socially distanced, of course.
Socially distanced, absolutely.
Exactly. Listen, thanks very much for coming in.
Cheers, man.
Cheers, thank you.